Day 606 of the war in Gaza. The army announced the expansion of Operation Gideon's Chariots and also the death of 3 soldiers during overnight operations in Jabalia in northern Gaza. More from ILTV's Steve Leibovitz.
The fallen were named as Staff Sergeant Lior Steinberg 20, a combat medic from Petach Tikva, Staff Sergeant Ofek Barhana 20, a combat medic from Yavne, Staff Sergeant Omer Van Gelder 22, a squad commander from Ma'ale Adumim. According to the army, the Givati Brigade troops were in a Humvee when they were hit by an explosive device planted there by terror operatives. Meanwhile, the IDF announced that it has expanded the Gaza ground offensive. IDF Chief Eyal Zamir instructed the army to operate in new areas in Gaza. An IDF statement said, in the past day, troops expanded the ground maneuver, eliminated terrorists across Gaza, and destroyed many weapons depots and terror infrastructure above and below ground. Additionally, the Air Force hit dozens of targets across Gaza. The IDF issued evacuation orders for new areas of Khan Yunis as the army ground offensive moved forward against Hamas. Civilians were instructed to move westward toward the Mawasi area on the coast. There are reports from Gaza that at least 20 people were killed and more than 100 wounded when they gathered overnight in an effort to obtain food from an aid distribution center that came under fire. The army said that troops had only fired warning shots toward suspects who approached them about a kilometer away and were unaware of any injuries at the site. The U.S.-based and Israeli-supported Gaza Humanitarian Foundation said it's continuing aid distribution as usual, saying food was handed out without incident at the distribution point in Rafah, and it had no information about injuries or deaths. GHF began providing aid in Gaza last month, bypassing traditional aid groups. The group has been widely criticized by the international community, with the UN saying its aid plan encourages the forced relocation of Palestinians in Gaza and more violence. Earlier, the IDF released drone footage showing armed men in Gaza shooting civilians on the way to collect humanitarian aid at a distribution point in Khan Yunis. The army said Hamas is doing everything it can to prevent the success of food distribution in Gaza and is starving its residents.
And the American-Israeli-backed Gaza Humanitarian Fund, also known as GHF, says they've delivered almost 6 million meals in their first week of operation inside of the Gaza Strip, secured by the IDF but distributed by American contractors. The IDF and GHF said false reports spread on Sunday by major news networks that dozens were killed by Israeli fire near one of their food distribution sites, what officials are calling misinformation. The incident set off a firestorm of reports citing Hamas and eyewitnesses. ILTV's Shosh Bedrosian is in the studio now. Shosh, you've been following the reporting on this incident all weekend. What happened? What can you tell us?
A lot, and there's a lot of information out there and a lot of misinformation out there. On Sunday, all of us woke up to this news that about 30 Palestinians were killed. This was all according to Palestinian media. Dozens of people were also injured, but no exact information from the IDF of what happened. A few hours later, they issued a pretty vague statement, and they said, quote, "We were unaware of injuries caused by IDF troops fired within the distribution site, but the matter is still under review." Now, this media that did come out say these people were killed and injured by Israeli fire inside of that distribution zone.
So what happened after these reports, right? The international media sort of jumps on this, running with the stories that dozens were dead. What happened next?
So it took a few more hours for the IDF to release more information, and everyone was finally waiting for this to come out. And I'll tell you this, they outright denied opening fire in any type of vicinity in this distribution center. They actually said these reports were false and, quote, serious allegations against the IDF. Now, the IDF said they did fire warning shots in the air because there was some type of chaos, but it was outside the vicinity of this distribution center site. And the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation actually released a 15-minute video showcasing the exact time when these reports say this incident happened, but there was no chaos, no gunfire erupted, no one was running, and it seemed as if this distribution went on as normal, which is exactly what they said. Now, the GHF also calls this false reporting and, quote, was the most egregious in terms of outright fabrications and misinformation fed to the international media, such strong and forceful terms used to describe this entire media incident. We know from our reporting, Hamas has worked overtime to make sure no one can get their hands on this type of aid from this distribution center. Remember, it's Israeli, American-backed. Hamas does everything in their power to try and control the aid that comes in and out of Gaza. And now this is their opportunity where they can't steal the aid and control their own people. Now, the Center for Peace Communications actually released a video of one man, an eyewitness to what happened. Here's what he had to say.
نحن هنا بالقرب من المنطقة التي حدث فيها هذا الموضوع. أولا حماس تفضل أن نجوع ونموت جوع ونعاني كي لا تنجح آلية توزيع المساعدات الأمريكية. حماس ومش من هالجيت بس من 18 عام تستخدم اقتصاد المساعدات وتوزع المساعدات للضغط على الناس واستغلالهم والتحكم فيهم ولأجل تجنيد الشباب والناس والمحتاجين. وبالتالي الآلية الجديدة بكل تأكيد تزعج حماس وتقهرها. كل الأدلة واللي شفناه بعيوننا بدل على أن حماس هي من تسبب بحالة القتل والهلع أثناء توزيع المساعدات قبل أيام. اللي صار هو هجوم لمسلحين على طوابير الناس المنتظرين لاستلام المساعدات من الشركة الأمريكية. ولا أحد يملك سلاح وقدرة على التحرك والقيام بمثل هذا الهجوم على الناس إلا حماس، وما حدا له مصلحة بهذا الهجوم إلا حماس. الجانب الأمريكي يريد بشدة أن تنجح هذه الآلية في التوزيع، وكذلك الإسرائيلي، لأن الضغوطات من مسألة إدخال المساعدات على إسرائيل، وهي طريقة تضمن لإسرائيل عدم سيطرة حماس على المساعدات.
And Later, U.S. Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee basically also laid out a very forceful statement calling all of these reports reckless and irresponsible reporting.
Shosh, thank you so much for the report. Incredible how Hamas lies are being spread by mainstream media without any basic fact-checking. Thank you, Shosh. And millions of Israelis were sent into bomb shelters over the holiday weekend of Shavuot from 2 missiles launched day after day from the Iranian-backed Houthis in Yemen. On Monday night, just as the holiday came to an end, red alert sirens sounded throughout central Israel and Jerusalem. The Houthis claimed responsibility, saying they were targeting Israel's Ben Gurion International Airport. The IDF announced it was able to successfully intercept the ballistic missile. One day earlier, the Houthis launched a missile which also triggered sirens across central Israel. The IDF also intercepted that missile. No casualties were reported in either attack. And U.S. President Donald Trump reiterated on Monday his administration's stance on nuclear talks with the Islamic Republic of Iran, contradicting reports that Washington is considering allowing Iran to continue its uranium enrichment program. In a post on Truth Social, Trump said the auto pen should have stopped Iran a long time ago from enriching. Under our potential agreement, we will not allow any enrichment of uranium. On Saturday, the United States presented a new proposal for a nuclear deal to Iran through Omani intermediaries. This comes after 5 rounds of talks over the past several weeks. In response, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said on Monday that Iran would respond to the U.S. nuclear proposal soon, but doubled down on Tehran's stance that it has a right to continue uranium enrichment. Meanwhile, a new report by the UN nuclear watchdog found that Iran has enough uranium now to produce 9 nuclear weapons should it choose to do so, and said it was the only non-nuclear country to produce such material. This alarming report prompted a rare statement on Saturday by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office, which called on the international community to act now to stop Iran. The Prime Minister's office added that Iran is totally determined to complete its nuclear weapons program, and said the report strongly reinforces what Israel has been saying for years. The purpose of Iran's nuclear program is not peaceful. And joining us now with more on the Iranian nuclear threat is Ben Sabti, Iran expert at the Institute for National Security Studies. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi, thank you very much.
So a lot to discuss. You know, the U.S. put a proposal for a nuclear deal on the table, and Iran, according to multiple reports, is considering rejecting this deal and insisting it's going to continue enriching uranium. So, you know, as an expert on the Iranian regime, maybe you can explain this to us. You know, what are the Iranians playing at?
The Iranian regime, it's not about the people, of course. The Iranian regime sees that in the American side, there is kind of confusion. The president says one thing, the others say something else. Once it's allowed to enrich uranium for this or that percent. Once they are not allowed to do that. So they want to enjoy this kind of instability, these kind of differences between the American figures. This is actually very enjoyable for them. They can go through these differences and make the price better for themselves and less pay to the West and to the American side. Of course, Israel is not also part of the deal, so it makes it easier in their eyes, of course. So when they look at this phase of talks, of agreement, they actually remember the first talks with Witkoff a few months ago. We are in the same place, in the same words, in the same area of talking about enriching or not enriching. And this is a very good place for Iran to focus all the world about only this issue, not talking about missiles, not talking about the terror issue. And they will go with that for maybe many months.
But I mean, how long can these negotiations continue to drag out before either Iran caves or the U.S. gives the green light for a military solution? Or is Iran simply banking on the fact that the Trump administration won't attack?
Yes, exactly. Some kind of trust the Trump administration that they won't attack. They saw that aircrafts came to the area but left this area, so the danger is less. Yes, Israel can attack even by itself, but in their eyes, Israel cannot succeed like USA, and they can go on and on for many months. If it depends on them, they can go on and have 4 or 5 hours of talk every week to go to nowhere, to make it very generally and talking, as I said before, about enriching only, not dismantling the centrifuges, not closing these places of enriching uranium, and inspectors, of course. So this is a very good place, unless the American administration makes it clear for Iran, you have to stop now. The American administration have to be very clear against the Iranians.
And, you know, a new report came out today in the Financial Times that says that Iran is bolstering its air defenses ahead of maybe a potential strike either by the Israelis or by the Americans. Does the regime, or will the regime, actually be able to withstand such an attack from the United States?
I think they can't stand this kind of attack, not from US and not from Israel, because we are much more stronger than them, we and the West generally. But they get prepared. We gave them, the West gave them so many months since February, March, or even before that, since the second attack of Israel against Iran. They could prepare and fix their facilities and make them improved and better to deal with this kind of potential attack. So they get ready for all kinds of options. And I think the sooner that President Trump makes it clear what he wants to do really with Iran, it's better not to let them get prepared to use this time for their preparations and taking advantages of this time.
Indeed, Iran, of course, trying to drag out these negotiations as much as possible. Benny Sabti, thank you so much for your insights today.
Thank you.
Israel Bonds, the heartbeat of solidarity, the powerhouse of support. When the Israeli-Hamas war hit, Israel Bonds stood tall, proving we're more than just an investment, we're a lifeline. Israel Bonds pledges to ensure Israel thrives and flourishes. Investing in Israel bonds isn't just a financial move, it's a declaration for resilience, strength, and a better future for Israel. Join us and let solidarity echo through generations.
And in the United States, a horrifying attack at a pro-Israel rally in Colorado leaves 8 injured. Investigators are now calling it a targeted act of terror. More on this from ILTV's Mayan Hoffman.
45-year-old Mohammed Sabri Soleiman, the man accused of attacking a pro-Israel rally in Colorado that injured 8 people, including a Holocaust survivor, faces multiple charges, including 16 counts of attempted first-degree murder. Witnesses say Soleiman yelled "Free Palestine" and threw incendiary devices into the peaceful crowd. According to the FBI, he told agents he firebombed the demonstrators because Zionists were taking over our land, and that he wanted to kill all Zionist people and wished they were all dead. Authorities recovered 16 unused Molotov cocktails in the hours following the attack, each one contributing to the attempted murder charges, according to the Boulder District Attorney.
If convicted and if they run consecutive, the maximum on those counts would be 192 years. So 384 years on the attempted murder, 48 on the use of the Molotov cocktails, and then the attempted use would be 192 years.
The attack took place at Pearl Street Mall near the University of Colorado during an event organized by Run for Their Lives, a group advocating for the release of Israeli hostages. The FBI is calling it a targeted terror attack. Victims ranged in age from 52 to 88.
No one should ever be subjected to violence of any kind. But our laws recognize that such violence is particularly pernicious when someone is targeted because of their race, their religion, or their national origin.
Donald Trump blamed the Biden administration's ridiculous open border policies and called for deporting illegal anti-American radicals. U.S. Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee accused the U.S. media of fueling anti-Semitism with reckless, biased coverage. The incident comes amid a wave of anti-Semitic attacks in the U.S., including an arson attempt on Governor Josh Shapiro and threats against synagogues, Jewish centers, and Israeli institutions nationwide. President Herzog also responded, calling it a cowardly act, and urged Americans to stand united against hatred. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vowed Israel would stand strong with Jewish communities everywhere.
And joining us now with more on the disturbing rise of violent anti-Semitic incidents in the United States is Netta Dancingel, CMO and CPO at Voice of the People. Thank you for joining us.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
So we are seeing a rise in very extreme, very violent anti-Semitic incidents in the United States. You know, anti-Semitism, it's an age-old phenomenon. But is it simply the war in Gaza that's driving this hatred now, or is there something more to it?
Well, Lidar, I can only speak from the research that we've been doing in the past few months while working in Voice of the People project. And from a survey we conducted that began in August of 24 and finished in February 25, the top concern of Jews in the US and actually globally is anti-Semitism. 78% of the people said that anti-Semitism and their feelings of vulnerability and fear is their number one priority and pain point as a Jewish person in the world. So I actually feel like this is validating a fear that has been present for the past almost 2 years.
Absolutely. So that's a very, I would say, unnerving responses to the survey that you've done. Can you tell us a little bit about the work that Voice of the People is doing, a little bit about this initiative in terms of combating anti-Semitism?
Sure. So first of all, I want to say that the founder and the person that dreamt of Voice of the People is President Isaac Herzog, the president of Israel. And he was thinking of this even before he was president, when he was working in the Jewish Agency. He has a very, very, I would say, an important place in his heart and mind for the global Jewish world. And he wanted to create a platform that actually gets diverse Jewish voices from all around the world, you know, no matter denomination, geography, gender, generations, to get them together in kind of like a solution incubator, we call it the council, where they work together under specific topics and challenges. and they think of solutions. And it's a work in 2-year cycle. We're currently now in our first cohort. And the survey that we did was actually to find the biggest pain points today.
Absolutely, an incredible initiative. And, I want to get back to the incident in Boulder. The Jewish community in the United States, as you said, of course, the largest after Israel, still only 1% or 2% of the general U.S. population. But Jews in America are seeing such events unfold. First Washington, now Boulder. And as you mentioned, the fear of anti-Semitism is one of sort of the major problems facing the American Jewish community. So there's a serious concern for their safety. I also want to address what U.S. Ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, said. He drew a direct link between the media disinformation on Israel and the attack in Boulder, Colorado. Do you agree with his assessment?
Well, I don't feel like I can state expert opinion of that. What I can say is, in our survey, we asked about, threats and fears, and we found that 82% of Gen Z and 81% of millennials said they feel threatened. And they specifically said in media, social media spaces, academia, and other spaces that they kind of live and create in. So I mean, social media and media have a big effect on our life, on our opinions, and how we get our, our news. And that is something that needs to be investigated and researched. I know one of the groups in Voice of the People is working actually on researching that area, on media as a source of truth that connects to anti-Semitism.
So an unfortunate incident in Boulder, Colorado, and Voice of the People trying to resolve these issues of anti-Semitism, this age-old phenomenon. Netta Danziger, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And I'm sending love and get well to all the people that were affected. I hope they all are okay. Thank you.
And the U.S. flag was raised in Damascus for the first time since 2012, signaling new improved relations between Washington and its new post-Assad Islamist government. The flag was raised over the U.S. embassy as the new ambassador also signaled Washington's approval of Syria's plan to absorb foreign jihadist fighters into its national army. According to the plan, some 3,500 foreign fighters, mainly from Uyghurs in China and neighboring countries, would join the newly formed unit. The U.S. envoy expressed hopes that the new government in Syria will have an improved relationship with Israel and called for the emergence of a non-aggression agreement for a start.
Syria and Israel is a solvable problem.
سوريا وإسرائيل هي مشكلة ممكن حلها.
But it starts with a dialogue. We need to start with just a non-aggression agreement.
تمام ونبلش نفكر بتفاهم مع نوع عدائي.
Talk about boundaries and borders.
نحكي عن الحدود والحدود.
And start a new relationship with all of our.
And now, let's take a look at the weather forecast. Cloudy skies are expected around most of the country tonight, with temperatures reaching lows of 19 degrees Celsius or 66 degrees Fahrenheit. Then tomorrow we'll see sunny skies alongside hot temperatures with highs of 29 degrees Celsius or 84 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's a wrap for today's news. For the latest updates from Israel on all your devices, be sure to follow our ILTV channel, subscribe to our newsletter, and explore our website, iltv.tv. Stay informed with the latest news straight from the heart of Israel. I'm Ladar Gavelazi. Be well, stay safe, and thank you so much for watching.